for the president and Harry Reid to engage on this issue.
Now, I'm concerned about the lack of urgency here. I think we all know we're running out of time. This is far too much at stake for political gamesmanship. We need to protect the American families and businesses from this looming tax hike.
Joining us now to talk about all this, Alexis McGill-Johnson, Executive Director of American Values Institute, and Ron Bonjean, a guy who knows how things get handled in the House of Representatives. He was former Communications Director to House Speaker Hastert. The House, Ron, is saying, look, we've sent spending bills over to the Senate and they have languished, so it's their turn. Is that a workable strategy? I mean, are Americans going to say, okay, the House has done its job?
Well, I think that if we don't get a deal, even a small deal, I think that Americans are going to blame Washington in general. You know, the president tried to blame Republicans over the weekend, on a Sunday talk show. And I don't think that that's the way voters see it. I think they're going to say, you know what, Democrats, Republicans, you're not getting anything done. This is, we reelected President Obama because we wanted him to go on a path forward, but it's not happening. And and I think if the markets crash, it'll scare a lot of people. And I think that taxes will go up. I think they're going to point at both sides. And it's a big problem for both parties.
Alexis, Harry Truman had the famous "Buck Stops Here" desk, a sign on his desk. Should President Obama get that out of, the Smithsonian or wherever it resides right now and take the responsibility himself?
Yeah, look, I think the president has been showing a lot of leadership around this, and I think that what the American people are going to do is they are going to look at this in the much larger context. Since the president has been in office, the House Republicans in particular have been trying to hang the economy and the budget and the deficit around the president's neck, and instead of trying to lead and figure out how to grow the economy and build a better opportunity for all Americans. And so I think it's not just about the buck stopping with the president. I think the president has been doing all he can to really push the Senate and the House Republicans, in the right direction. But I think really the buck for the American voter is going to stop with the House Republicans and John Boehner and Eric Cantor in particular.
Well, that's what we're talking about. But let me play for you what Senator Tom Harkin said just a bit ago. We opened the Senate session this hour with Majority Leader Harry Reid, who basically said, we're still talking, but no progress or no real progress to report. Didn't say much, frankly. Then Senator Harkin took the microphone. Here's what he had to say.
If we're going to have some kind of a deal, the deal must be one that really does favor the middle class, the real middle class, those that are making $30,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year. That's the real middle class in America. And as I see this thing developing, quite frankly, as I've said before, no deal is better than a bad deal, and this looks like a very bad deal the way this is shaping up.
So, Ron, what about that Plan B bill that the House passed or was considering that would have raised taxes on those making $1 million and up?
Well, that's what's confusing me is that Republicans want to save taxpayers, as many taxpayers as possible. We want to save them money. At the same time, we've been looking for entitlement cuts. We've been looking for spending cuts to make sure that, we can pay for increasing the debt. And that's why we're having to focus on a small deal. And I do think that there's a realistic small deal where we'll get, we'll prevent taxes going up for those making $450,000 or less. Democrats want $250,000 or less. I think what we're trying to do is save more people money who have small businesses who employ people. And you know what? Next year, when we deal with the sequester, which we haven't yet in this deal, which we're unlikely to, and when we have the debt limit increase, which we have to deal with, Republicans have more leverage to demand spending cuts, demand entitlement reform. But right now, we're focused on saving taxpayers money.
Alexis, you mentioned that in your view, it's Speaker Boehner and Republicans in Congress who get the blame, but as one of those Republicans said this morning on Fox News Channel, he was elected to reduce spending in Washington, and there are hundreds of Republicans who feel the same way. So why should they be forced to go with the spending package that the president wants just because he's the president?
Well, because the president was reelected.
Well, they all were. That's my point.
And I understand that. I mean, but I think that the president's larger message around increasing taxes on wealthy Americans to help us deal with some of our debt challenges is really the central theme that went through this entire election cycle. And so the Republican House, in particular, has been focused on trying to prevent taxes from increasing and trying to protect essentially 2% of Americans. 2% of Americans and having their taxes go up, when really it is, as Senator Harkin said, it really is about those people, those teachers, those firefighters, those people who are actually supporting the American economy in very real ways. And so until we can come to a deal that doesn't include the kinds of cuts to spending that would affect their livelihood. I mean, I think that's what we're not talking in the spending conversation. These entitlement cuts actually would have a meaningful impact on their lives. And so it doesn't seem like the right way forward.
But as you know, the increase on the top 2% really isn't going to do much to reduce the deficit. It seems to be the spending problem that they're going to have to attack. But that's a discussion for another day. Alexis McGill-Johnson, Ron Bonjean, thank you both.
Thanks, John.
Thank you so much.
Well, if going off the fiscal cliff sounds dangerous, check out the action at this year's car jumping championship in West Sussex, England. It's an annual competition where the goal is to try and jump over as many cars as possible. 10 drivers compete for the title, and each jump is judged on height, applause from the crowd, and of course, distance. In the end, it was 31-year-old John Harbour who took home the crown after managing to clear a total of 9 cars. Unbelievable. Wow.
I think you got to go get an old Beetle with an engine in the rear. I don't know. It's what it looks like to me. I would do that.
I know you would.
Yeah, I'd try it. If car jumping isn't extreme enough for you, how about a dip in a frozen river? It's all part of an annual tradition in northeastern China, where hundreds of people gather to celebrate the country's National Winter Swimming Day and help ring in the new year. Swimmers say they really don't have a problem with the cold water, but the air temperature, 18